Hi, and welcome to Wrong Way. And today we're going to disassemble the InMotion V8S. We're going to take a look at it from the inside and check for its quality and safety. So let me tell you more about it. Wrong Way. The teardown of any given electric unicycle is part of my extended review process that I have with electric wheels. So if you want to see any other videos on this wheel, check out the InMotion V8S playlist. And although I love to see how things work and check out the organs of any given electric vehicle, it is very time consuming and I need to double check a lot of info and make sure I don't do things wrong, and I still did in this video. So if you feel like supporting the channel, give it a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. Big thanks to my Ariel too for providing a coupon code of 5% off for our viewers. I do receive a kickback from those orders, as well as allowing me to perform plastic surgery on this, well, plastic wheel. All jokes aside, the InMotion V8S is based on a platform that has been around for years, starting with the V8, then the V8F, and now the V8S. It's a great beginner wheel and it has proven itself to be good against water ingress, but more on that later. The most notable upgrade in this S model is the bigger battery of 760 watt-hours based on 21700 cells. So let's start disassembling this wheel. It's relatively easy and you just need to remove two Phillips head screws from the bottom of the wheel, and then you need to twist the cover and then simply remove it. And I definitely didn't brute force it the first time around, breaking most of the plastic pieces. I really like the simplicity of removing the side cover. It's a lot easier than in other wheels. And by the way, the side pad is non-removable. I mean, when you remove it, you'll probably break it, which I also did. But hey, here it is. For its size, the side pad is pretty comfy, and it has a plastic layer which adheres to the side of the shell. Really clever. It's difficult to stick adhesive directly to foam. The side covers are made out of a pretty durable, dark, transparent plastic. It won't break on the wheel's first fall. This dust magnet is transparent, so you can see the beautiful RGB LED lights of the V8S, which are entirely configurable. I would love to see a fully transparent version of the side cover. It would make you see the insides of the wheel from the outside, as well as make the LEDs shine just a bit brighter, which helps with safety and visibility in nighttime rides. There is no water sealing gasket around the side covers, and this wheel doesn't actually have an IP rating. Although there are lots of those wheels around, and cases of water ingress or water damage are extremely rare. Nevertheless, I'd love to see improved water resistance in the future and an IP rating. The pedals do not need to be removed for the disassembly, but I want to show it to you anyways if you want to change them for other ones like Nova or any other brand. The screw on the bottom makes the pedal stay in place, so the tighter it is, the more difficult it will be to put the pedals up or down. If it's too difficult to put them up or down, just loosen it. To remove the foot plates, you will need to loosen this bottom screw and unscrew two hex screws, which were covered with Loctite, on the edge of the pedals. The pedal rod was fairly difficult to hammer out. I really like the tolerances of Bigodi here more. Those pedal rods can also bend over time, so if you're a heavier rider, you might want to invest in some titanium rods. I hope that the metal quality or durability of these rods improves in the future, as I had similar problems with bent pedal rods on the InMotion V12. But hey, you know how I ride. The foot plates failed to evoke any InMotion in me. The grip tape is rather weak, the design is antiquated, their angle is flat, so it's rather easy to fall off from the wheel. I'd love to see mountain bike studs or a adjustable angle. The lowest hanging fruit would be just at least to have some decent grip tape and a sharper pedal angle. A mildly interesting feature of the pedals is this gel rubber insert, which is supposed to make the ride more comfortable. I don't really know about that. I find it also really interesting that the gel insert is almost heavier than the pedal itself. The durability of those pedals doesn't have the best track record, so even with the newest generation of them, make sure to check once in a while if there aren't any cracks in them. They're made out of aluminium and they can wear off over time, and suddenly, you don't know it, after 2000 kilometers you will fall because your pedal broke. I hope that InMotion comes up with a new design which is safer for all of us. Oh, sorry. Hello?
Hey, wrong way. This is Monocat.
Oh, hi Monocat. What's up?
Actually, InMotion already came up with their better pedals.
Oh, right. And they have studs and everything. Do they put there on their stock wheels?
No, you can buy them additionally for $120 if you want that.
Oh. And they're available for the V8?
I don't know. You have to check because they're not available for all of their models. Only some certain ones.
All right. Thanks for your wisdom, Monocat. Right, see you later.
See you later.
Moving on, the battery here is on the top in a plastic casing. It's connected to the motherboard with a main XT60 plug as well as communication wires. The battery wires come in 2 different gauges. I would like to see one, the bigger one. The battery itself is mounted with 6 Phillips head screws which are destined for plastic. Now here, really important, the battery case itself and the screws that are holding the battery case within itself in place are also Phillips head and they're exactly the same. That shouldn't be like this. Like on the V11, we should see some triangular or some other peculiar shape screws that make it not so easy for the average consumer to take apart the battery case. By accident, I both removed the battery cover as well as the screws that mount it in place, which made it difficult to take out the battery pack, and it's also kind of dangerous for an unskilled person. Well, maybe in this case I could still handle it, but for an average consumer to have direct contact with the battery that has no shrink wrap around it. I hope they change that in the future. Additionally, there is no rubber seal or silicone seal for the battery pack. That's really missing here. Luckily, in this battery compartment, there is tape that would prevent water from seeping in from the wheel well. I would like to see it on both sides though, or some silicone. It's okay, but could be better. The battery configuration here is a 20S 2P, so don't expect tons of performance, based on high-capacity Samsung 50E cells. And although InMotion really cares about safety and has multiple fuses and the communication with the motherboard, one key feature which is missing from all of InMotion wheels is passive cell balancing. So the problem that appears after a while with those wheels, if you have it for 2 years, 3 years, with bigger mileage, is that the differences in voltage between cells become huge, and then you have less range, you have less performance, and maybe at some point the wheel will not ride for you anymore. So passive cell balancing should be here. Kind of insane that it's still not on every single InMotion wheel. With that said, if there's any problem with those cells and the differences in voltages in cell groups becomes too huge, then you will need to manually balance them, which is just a time and money costly procedure, and not all of the service stations do that. There's also no smart BMS, so you won't even find out about those cell differences. Probably it will be more of an error message in the app if it just goes too far, or the wheel will not charge to 100%, or you will have a significant drop in range or performance. Moving back to durability, the shell is held in place just by 4 screws which are connected to the L hangers. Happily, there is Loctite, but I would like to see just a bit more screws, maybe 6 or 8 for this purpose. In the same vicinity around those screws, there's just plastic. So if the wheel really tumbles hard, or if the plastic just wears off after a while, there might be cracks which can lead to water getting into the wheel or even into the motherboard area. So I would really like to see a metal plate behind that, or at least some stronger, more durable shape of the plastic to prevent this plastic from cracking. I gotta say though that the V8 has a pretty great layout and everything is relatively easy to access and with a relatively small amount of screws. A big sigh of relief compared to the V11 and V12, which have more screws than an averagely sized IKEA kitchen. The motherboard has a cover and it's held in place by 4 more Phillips head screws. Although it does have a rubber gasket around it, there are some openings for cables, so if water gets in, it might get into the motherboard too. In most EUC teardowns, I also talk about the difficulty of changing a tire. The InMotion V8S, however, does pretty well here. If they just added a phase wire connector on the outside instead of underneath the motherboard, the number of screws you would need to unscrew in order to change a tire would drop from 16 to just 12. So not a super easy tire change, but by far better than other EUCs where you need to take off both the pedals and most of the time tons of screws that hold the side covers in place. The motor phase wire connectors are very wimpy and it's easy to bend them. The wires also don't seem thick. I would like to see some improvement here in motion. The motherboard only has passive cooling in form of a radiator behind the motherboard heatsink plate. That makes the wheel quiet and you have less parts to service. But on the other hand, in more performance riding and in hillier areas with heavier riders, it's easier to fry the board. Believe me, I fried the one of the V8F. Slowly closing off, let's take a look at the wheel itself of this electric wheel. The tire is a total of 16 inches in diameter and rim around 12. We have a Chaoyang 16 by 2.125 tire, which is a pretty good tire actually for this size anyways. It would be pretty durable and it gives me actually tons of grip for such a small tire. It's pretty narrow though, so if you're a heavier rider or you're like performance riding, getting up curbs, going downstairs, actually I wouldn't even do that with this wheel, you will need to keep up the pressure high or just look for another wheel which has a wider tire. The durability of this rim is probably none other than what we see in other wheels, but I feel like the axle is definitely a bit weak. Again, if you're a heavier rider, look for a bigger wheel, especially ones with a hollow bore motor. And this will be concluding my InMotion V8S teardown. In general, I think it's a good wheel, and even though it's been years since it came out, I think it's still a pretty well thought out design. Although there is some, things to improve here and there, I think it's still a valid choice, especially for lighter riders that don't want a heavy wheel in 2022. It's pretty great for commuting in dense urban areas and pushing it around indoors when you need to get off from the wheel. So with that said, if you're still here, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.